Marxist literary theory and reader response theory. We will be taking the time to define both Marxist literary theory and reader response theory. Also, we will provide a brief history and major figures on both theories. First, we're going to start off with Marxist literary theory. Defined as dialectical materialism, this method can be explained in opposition to the dialectical idealism of Hegel. The labor theory of value and the idea of surplus value is important here. Marxism explains that the value of an object is determined by the amount of labor required for its manufacture and not the demand for the product, as in capitalism. This describes how the new capitalist class has flourished through exploitation of the working class. The capitalist system and the unproductive nobility were seen weak by Marxists. This would become increasingly severe as industrialization progressed and would manifest themselves in increasingly severe economic crisis. Marxists believed this process to be inevitable, thus they were to speed up by bringing about the International Union of Workers, supporting a quicker solution to this assumed inevitability. The working class, after becoming the ruling class, are then to focus all the production to the state and to increase productive forces at the fastest possible rate. Having destroyed capitalism, like capitalists toward the nobles before them, there would be no divisions of class, providing means of production would not be owned by any single dominating group. Capitalist institutions, as family and religion, would cease to exist, and each individual would be fulfilled. Social and economic success would be achieved, although there is no evidence to support it. As defined in the Bedford Glossary of Critical Terms, Marxist criticism is a type of criticism in which literary works are viewed as a product of work and whose practitioners emphasize the role of class and ideology as they reflect and even challenge the prevailing social order. Marxist literary theory focuses on things political in nature, such as class conflict. It brings challenges to the social order and tends to bring authors sympathetic to the working class. It has a big connection between economic production and the literature around it. Let's take a look at some major figures within Marxist criticism. First, we have Karl Marx. Marx was also the first Marxist literary critic, writing critical essays in the 1830s on such writers as Johann Wolfgang von Goethe and William Shakespeare. Even after Marx met Friedrich Engels in 1843 and began collaborating on overtly political works such as the German Ideology in 1846 and the Communist Manifesto in 1844, he maintained a keen interest in literature. Another major figure was Terry Eagleton. He is regarded by many as Britain's most influential living literary critic. Literary theory, probably his best known work, traces the history of the study of texts from the Romantics of the 19th century to the postmodernists of the later 20th century. Eagleton's thoughts remain firmly rooted in the Marxist tradition. The socialist viewpoint continues to have an optimistic outlook about the revolutionary potential of the world working class to rule society in its own name, socialism. We are optimistic that the working class, united across the borders and acting in its own class interests, can solve the devastating crisis of war, poverty, oppression, and environmental destruction that capitalism is responsible for. The capitalist ruling class of the United States exercises a virtual dictatorship not only over American society, but also over the entire world. This capitalist class rule is the basic cause of poverty, wars, and the degradation of natural environment. After being expelled from socialist action in 1999, we formed Socialist Workers' Organization in an attempt to carry on the project of building a nucleus of a revolutionary party true to the historic teachings and program of Marx, Engels, Lenin, and Trotsky. Now we're going to go into reader response theory. Reader response criticism is a literary critical theory promoted by Stanley Fish in the 1980s, which suggests that a text gains meaning by the purposeful act of a reader reading and interpreting it. The theory goes to show the relationship between reader and text is highly valued. It is rather like the logic question of whether a tree falling in a forest makes a sound if no one is around to hear it. A text sitting on a shelf does nothing. It does not come alive until the reader and text are joined. In introducing the value of the reader, reader response criticism shares much with the new historicism. Reader response criticism, just like the new criticism, can completely ignore authorial intent, but it will judge how well the author succeeds based on acceptance of the author's works by different interpretive communities. Reading choices will begin to be influenced by the way in which the reader values certain aspects of literature. The wise writer will attempt to come up with a material that is handled well under various interpretations. For example, Stanley Fish, whose early work is seen by some as marking the true beginning of contemporary reader response criticism, also took issues with the tenets of formalism. In Literature and the Reader, Effective Stylistics in 1970, he argued that any school of criticism that sees a literary work as an object, claiming to describe what it is and never what it does, misconstrues the very essence of literature and reading. Literature exists and signifies when it is read, Fish suggests, and its force is an effective one. Also, we have Louise Rosenblatt. Louise Rosenblatt is often credited with pioneering the approaches in literature as exploration in 1938. In her 1969 essay, Towards a Transitional Theory of Reading, she summed up her position as follows. A poem is what the reader lives through under the guidance of the text and experiences as relevant to the text. Recognizing that many critics would reject this definition, Rosenblatt wrote, "The idea that a poem presupposes a reader actively involved with the text is particularly shocking to those seeking to emphasize the objectivity of the interpretations.